In May 2008, two identical twin sisters stepped off a bus at a quiet rest stop on England's M6 highway. What happened next was captured on camera, an inexplicable and terrifying psychotic episode that played out on one of the country's busiest roads. It was a shared delusion, possibly a rare psychiatric phenomenon known as Folie à Deux. But the highway was just the beginning. Just days later, on a quiet residential street, a kind man who had tried to help was dead. This is the tragic and bizarre story of Ursula and Sabina Eriksson. It's a story of mental illness, fateful decisions, and the unanswered questions that remain.
Before we continue, I'm curious, do you have a theory about the case? If so, show your support for this investigation with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I'll be there to read and reply to them. Your input drives this series forward.
Ursula and Sabina Eriksson were born on November 3, 1967, in Sund, Sweden. Their bond as identical twins was inseparable, closeness that would one day take a dark turn. By 2008, their lives were separate. Ursula had made a life for herself in the United States, while Sabina lived in Ireland with her partner and children. That spring, Ursula flew to Ireland to visit her sister. It was meant to be a simple family visit. Instead, it became the starting point for a bizarre and tragic journey. The sisters soon traveled to the United Kingdom, crossing from Ireland to Liverpool, where they boarded a bus bound for London. On the bus, their behavior drew immediate concern. They clutched their bags tightly, refusing to place them in the luggage compartment. They told passengers they were police officers, even though they had no ID. At an unscheduled stop at Kiel Services, a rest area on the M6, the driver, deeply worried by their odd behavior, refused to let them back on. Staff, concerned about the sisters and their luggage, called the police.
Officers spoke to the twins, but not seeing any immediate danger, they let them go. Soon after, security cameras caught a chilling sight. Two women walking alone on the treacherous median of the M6 motorway.
One of the women, Sabina, tried to cross the busy lanes and was grazed by a small car. Shockingly, she and her sister Ursula kept walking along the central reservation, seemingly unfazed. Concerned motorists began phoning in reports of two pedestrians on the motorway. Highway patrol officers from the Central Motorway Police Group were dispatched, and, by coincidence, a BBC Motorway Cops film crew accompanied them. What should have been a straightforward removal of pedestrians from the motorway would instead turn into one of the most disturbing incidents ever caught on camera. As officers gathered on the hard shoulder to assess the situation, Ursula suddenly broke free from the group and sprinted into the path of an oncoming 40-ton articulated lorry. The truck struck her at full speed, crushing her legs but leaving her miraculously alive. Seconds later, her sister also ran into the highway, where a Volkswagen Polo struck her head-on and flung her into the air. Against all odds, she too survived, though she was knocked unconscious for several minutes. When Sabina regained consciousness, she became combative, shouting paranoid warnings about organ theft and insisting she was not normal. She even struck an officer and made repeated attempts to get back onto the motorway before she was restrained and sedated. Toxicology tests would later confirm there were no drugs or alcohol in either sister's system. What unfolded on that stretch of motorway was later described by psychiatrists as folie à deux, a rare shared psychosis. Ursula was rushed to the hospital with severe leg fractures and other injuries. Sabina, though also injured, was taken into custody. She was booked for assaulting a police officer and for being on the highway. In the police station, her demeanor was unnervingly calm, a stark contrast to the violent chaos of the motorway just hours before. When asked about her actions, she famously told an officer, "In Sweden we say an accident rarely comes alone," a chillingly prophetic statement. The next day, after a brief hearing, Sabina pleaded guilty to minor charges. The court, without the benefit of a full psychiatric evaluation, sentenced her time already served in custody. Shockingly, she was allowed to walk out of the police station a free woman, disoriented, alone, and with a mind still in the grip of a powerful delusion. This decision, to release an individual who had so recently exhibited such extreme and dangerous behavior,
would prove to be tragically consequential.
Wearing Ursula's green top and carrying her possessions in a clear plastic bag, Sabina was now alone and disoriented in the Fenton area of Stoke-on-Trent.
It was about 7 p.m. when she encountered two men walking a dog. 54-year-old Glenn Hollinshead, a former Royal Air Force airman and trained paramedic, and his friend, Peter Malloy. Sabina asked for a place to stay. Glenn, a good Samaritan, offered his help and invited her back to his home on Duke Street. Inside the house, her behavior was a terrifying pendulum swing between normal conversation and paranoid fear. She peered nervously through windows, flinched at sounds, and offered cigarettes to the men before snatching them back, claiming they might be poisoned. Peter Malloy, feeling profoundly uneasy, left before midnight, unable to shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. After he left, the atmosphere in the home seemed to settle. Glenn, ever the compassionate and trusting host, likely saw this as a sign that Sabina was just a traumatized and disoriented woman in need of help. He spent the morning and a portion of the afternoon trying to assist her. He made phone calls, attempting to locate Ursula and get her the medical care she needed. By early evening, feeling that the immediate danger had passed, he began preparing a simple meal for them both. The act of cooking was a gesture of hospitality and trust, a signal that he saw their time together as a normal, peaceful evening, rather than a continuation of the strange and frightening events from the day before. He was trying to provide a sense of stability, completely unaware that this very gesture of kindness would lead to his death just moments later. Neighbor Frank Booth remembers the moment with perfect clarity. Glenn stepped outside to borrow some tea bags, a favor he had asked before. Frank was washing his minibus and told him, "Come back in 5 minutes." What happened next took exactly 74 seconds. Glenn stumbled back into the yard, gasping for air. He said, "She stabbed me," and collapsed. At first, Frank thought it was some kind of grim joke, until he saw the blood. A single round wound on Glenn's chest. Frank immediately called 999, the UK emergency number. Glenn asked if he could sit down. He sat on the bumper of the minibus, and blood pumped from his chest. He then asked to lie down, and Frank, in those final moments, simply told him, "If it makes you comfortable." Paramedics arrived, but it was too late. Glenn had died. The wound, they said, had pierced his heart. After the crime, Sabina ran from the home, now wielding a hammer and striking herself in the head as she fled. A passing driver, Joshua Gradage, tried to stop her. She pulled a roof tile from her pocket and hit him on the back of the head. Her frantic escape ended at the Heron Cross Bridge. She climbed the barrier and jumped, plunging about 40 feet, 12 meters, onto the busy A50 roadway below. Miraculously, she survived the fall, though with 2 broken ankles and a skull fracture. She was taken to the hospital, this time under a police guard. Sabina was arrested while she was recovering in the hospital on June 6, 2008. On September 11th, she was discharged in a wheelchair and officially charged with murder. The legal proceedings were delayed into 2009 as they tried to obtain her medical records from Sweden. The trial began on September 1st, 2009. The very next day, on September 2nd, 2009, Sabina pleaded guilty to manslaughter, citing diminished responsibility. The court accepted the plea, with both the prosecution and defense agreeing that she had been insane at the time of the crime, though she was now considered sane for the trial. Experts debated 2 potential diagnoses: shared psychosis, also known as Folie, with Ursula as the primary and Sabina as the secondary partner, or a severe short-lived psychotic disorder with hallucinated voices. The judge, acknowledging her low legal culpability due to her mental state, sentenced her to a 5-year prison term, with credit for the time she had already served. The verdict sparked outrage and a flurry of hard questions from reporters and locals alike. Why was Sabina free to kill? Should the extreme behavior on the highway and a chilling footage have led to a mandatory psychiatric hold? Did information from the roadside incident, custody, and the court system simply fail to connect? Some argue that a psychiatric evaluation would have prevented Glenn Hollinshead's death. Others pointed to the legal thresholds and the chaotic reality of fast-moving crises. There are no easy answers, only a sequence of decisions that ended in an unimaginable tragedy.
This story, caught on camera and played out in the courtroom, is a tragic reminder of a system that failed a man who only wanted to help. The questions that remain are not about who to blame, but about how we can prevent such tragedies from happening again.
Thank you for watching. If you want to dive deeper into cases like this, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.